I've had this gut feeling that things need to change and develop. I really felt that NFTs could really help an independent artist career long term, and then also at the same time have them be more connected to their listeners and their supporters.
Episode 5 of the Invest in Music podcast, we're here today with Reo Cragun. Reo Cragun's an incredibly successful artist and the founder of Loners. Today we're here to talk about Satellites, the first project out of a Loners freshman tape. Reo's an incredibly close friend of mine and someone that's a huge inspiration. We talk about what it means to build a career in Web 2 and now have a fruitful career in Web 3. We had a lot to cover, so without further ado, let's get into it. Invest in Music, episode 5 with Reo Cragun. Reo, how are we feeling today, man?
Feeling great, man.
Definitely good to have you here, man. I feel like it's been a long time coming. How's the week been going for you?
It's been pretty solid, yeah, man. I've been in the gym a lot, trying to lose some weight, get back in shape. Skinny Craig on the way.
Were we getting supercharged out here or something?
Yeah, trying to get supercharged, man, for sure.
I love it. Well, for those who don't know, Reo is back in LA after a hiatus in Vegas for a short period of time. How you liking it, man?
I'm glad to be back, for sure. I did like pretty much a desert tour after COVID. We moved to, Palm Desert for a little bit, like a year and some change, and then moved out to Vegas. And yeah, I'm back in Los Angeles. Glad to be back.
You definitely have quite the relationship with Los Angeles. So we're going to get into all that. For those who don't know about you, can you give us a quick background about your project as an artist and then really how you got out here to LA in the first place?
Yeah, completely. So came to Los Angeles, I want to say 2016, had about $1,000 in my pocket. Used to work at Costco, so I was out there pushing cards and I was a cashier and had a dream that I wanted to live out. I wanted to become a musician and a producer and an artist. And really, it was kind of an insane bet because I think I had like one song out at the time. And I came out here, moved in with my manager, and tried to make it happen. From there, it was about a year of grinding, like making songs, couch surfing, and through that year, I met Jeremy Tyler, one of my best friends for sure, and he kind of just took me in and let me create music out of the house, gave me a room, and ended up securing like my first deal. Yeah.
It's amazing. And so let's set the scene here. What was the year that this was happening? And then culturally speaking within music, what was going on at that time? What were the platforms being used? And who were the artists that were kind of coming up?
Yeah, so during that time, I want to say it was late 2016, about 2017. We had made this song called Inconsiderate, and we were super gassed up on the song. And that's when I met Elliot Grange. I was introduced to him by Dre London. And Elliot ended up hearing some of the music, and I was the first artist signed to 10K, which is crazy because it had a completely different name at the time, and then they changed.
Yeah. That's crazy because now that Dave just signed to 10K. Right?
Yeah. I don't know if that information is out yet.
Alpha, a little bit alpha. But anyways, I feel like the interesting thing for you, man, is when you started your career on streaming, you really had some pretty quick success. I think it's something that not many artists are used to. How did it feel for you to be signing with a project like 10K, putting out music, and then almost immediately seeing the success that you had?
Yeah, completely. So it was wild, honestly. Back at that time, none of my music was getting any real traction. And I felt like, a world of possibilities was opened up to me at that time. And opportunities that I definitely had never experienced before this time period started arising. And we ended up putting Inconsiderate out. It was on the Spotify global charts. It was on the US viral charts as well, and it was like my first record. And to get that type of traction at such an early point in my career, it It was insane. It was, yeah, it was mind blowing, honestly.
How did you juggle your professional and personal life at that point? Like, what did that feel like to you, and what were your priorities and your focus at the time?
I had zero work-life balance. Yeah, it was, I mean, even today I have horrible work-life balance. But yeah, I don't know. I was, I would wake up and start making music, would break for food, and then get back to it until late at night. Back then, my creative process was different. It would last till super late at night. It was when I would get like, my best ideas. These days, it's like completely flipped on its head, and I try and work, before 11 every single day, get some music done.
Well, I mean, you got to put on the CEO hat now.
I know, right? Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's definitely a chapter I want to get pretty deep into. Before we do that, so we're kind of at a part in your journey where you have this song come out, it's trending, it's charting, everything's going well on the label side. You start seeing some tour support and some tour offerings, right? And you start hitting the road. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So we put out Inconsiderate. We followed up with a few singles, Nightcrawler, On My Way. On My Way started going crazy as well. And that first project just did real numbers and opened up even more opportunities. I hit the road with Lil Yachty as just like one of the supports on there. And that was, my first experience of tour. Was in the red a whole bunch, lost like a lot of money, which was, amazing that, I had the opportunities. But I think that was like the first time that I realized I was in the music business. And that ended up happening. And it opened my eyes quite considerably. So started paying attention a lot more to like where the money was going and how it was being spent. I remember we had this photo shoot during that first album run, and it was like 10 racks for like an hour and a half. And I was like, wait a second, that doesn't seem very responsible. During that time, I really think it was at that moment where I was just like, wow, I'm not completely in control of the say-so like I used to be. And I just wonder if like this is, if I'm on the right path. I had a lot more freedoms when I was an independent artist, and I kind of wanted those back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you do to put that back into your control? Like, what changes did you start making in your life at that point?
Yeah. So I think it was around that time that I just completely decided that, we should part ways. And that's what we did. I kind of gained my independence back after a few conversations, and just started from what I would say as ground zero again. And so after that, that was an interesting point in my life because everything was going so well. It was like glamorous, and then went back to super broke and was like, okay, cool. I don't know where to go from here. I know that I have this independence back and there's a lot more opportunities. During that time is when, I linked up with, I was the main support for Billie Eilish. Kind of got like a call out of the blue. They had heard the music and thought I would be a great fit for like the main support. And we ended up doing that run for Where's My Mind tour. And it was like a whole bunch of cities. It was just a domestic US tour. Did that run, and everything kind of just, really pivoted from there.
What did you start focusing on at that point? So when you get fresh off the road, you're out of your label deal, you're independent now, you have these records you're working on. What does that process look like kind of before and after your label situation?
I was putting out independent records here and there. Nothing was sticking like it was before. I had, a fan base at this time. I think like around that time I had probably like 600,000 monthly listeners. And, I was really trying to figure it out. I had zero idea where to go from here. I didn't have a lot of people in my corner. It was around that time too that I met Flume's management at a music festival, and linked up with them, and they were like, yeah, we should get you in the room with Harley. Feel like you guys would be like a good mesh. And And I think like a couple weeks later, I got in with Harley, and we made most of the music that came out on our collab EP like in one day.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say we cooked up like probably 5 ideas that day. And yeah.
Well, this is one thing that I really respect about you. I feel like you're so versatile in your collaborations that it doesn't really matter like what type of genre you're sitting in. It feels like you're able to really position yourself in a good spot. And I guess even now zooming out a bit with kind of the music that you're curating in Web3, which we'll get into, it really feels like you're always kind of searching for that next combination, that next trend when it comes to new music.
Yeah. I mean, look, I am a firm believer in, let's not force anything. Let's just make something cool. And that's the goal every single time that I'm making music, which I think is why, some of my catalog is just so versatile. I really just want to make, shit that feels right to me in that moment. And I don't know, man, I just love music in general. So I try not to stay in just one pocket for too long. I think that it can be damaging to your creativity if you really put yourself inside of a box.
Right.
And I always try and stay away from that.
Yeah. So at this point, you put out a record with Flume. You start tapping a lot more into the electronic world. Where are you at now in your mind in terms of how you're positioning your artist project in your career?
Yeah. So put out the project with Harley, and we pretty much hit the road on a world tour really quickly after that. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of music being made at that time, just because it's really hard to get work done when you're on and off of planes. And so yeah, got off tour in January 2020, and pretty much a month after that everything shut down.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think this is a good transition point because everything shuts down. NFTs start turning up.
Yep.
Basically, it was kind of the timeline, at least on my end. It was basically like pandemic started, everyone's inside, and then crypto starts to have a moment because everyone's on their computer at the whole time.
Yep.
And I know that this is something that's been on your radar before you were doing music NFTs. You were aware of crypto, you were trading NFTs. Can you talk a little bit about that introduction of that world into your life?
Yeah, completely. So I've had a lot of friends who were super early on to crypto. And I was always on the outside looking in and just kind of, like, oh, this is really cool. Feel like, I don't have enough money to, even consider, getting into this space. That was in like 2016, 2017. And I didn't realize until, 2020 that it's not really about how much money that you have.
Right.
It's just about, doing your research, figuring out what's going on with all these other projects, just gaining a whole bunch of knowledge. And so that's really what I did. I had so much time. I wasn't on the road, and we were pretty much stuck inside the house. California had a stay-at-home order, so I'm like, what do I do with all my time that I haven't had in, so many years? And that's really it became like my new passion.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it was probably about 6 months after that fact that we got connected through a mutual friends of ours, Jeremy Clear Eyes.
Yep.
And at that point in time, help me understand how your relationship with crypto went from learning about NFTs to thinking, hey, there's actually something here with music and NFTs.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a lot saved up after around 2020. And so I went pretty heavy on long-term holds. And that's when, NFTs, the PFP, world started going crazy. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, let me see what's going on here. Bought a whole bunch, lost a lot, had some gains. But it was like at that moment that I realized there's like a real application for music. And I just didn't understand why I couldn't find a lot of the music that was being released on chain at the time. And that's really like, I was on a journey to figure out where the music is at.
Yeah.
I was like, we got to tokenize this. And that's how, we got connected. And that's also how, I met David from Sound during that time too. And yeah, kind of all the pieces started falling together. And I really realized there was going to be like a movement around tokenized music.
Right. And I think that's the thing that separated my conversation with you from a lot of other artists that I talked to at the time, is that it felt like you were seeing this from the bigger picture. You know, it wasn't really about like, how can I sell Reo Cragun NFTs and try and make some money on what's happening here? You were like, what other music is out there? Like, what is the culture and the vibe around this? And in the same way we were talking about your interest in discovering new music, it felt like you were looking at this from much less of like an investment angle and much more about like, how do we actually build and create something around this?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, that's always been my mindset. You know, I really, what was happening is like, there was a lot of projects that were like pumping like super aggressively, but I realized that, you know, the ones that were going to be around like long term, they were doing things that were like pushing the boundary of like tech and art. And I was like, that was just so exhilarating to me. I was like, okay, cool. Like, you know, like for music specifically, I've had this gut feeling that things need to change and develop. I think that we've reached a point where there's a lot of friction between artists and then, let's call it, the execs, you know, where it's like there's this conversation that was happening around, you know, when music NFTs were first having a moment where it was like, cool, the artists are, you know, taking back a lot of their independence, and people were earning for the first time off of like their art. They didn't have to hit the road and go on a tour, and they didn't need to hit, you know, 10 million monthly listeners or get like 50 million streams. And I don't know, man, I really felt that NFTs could really, help an independent artist career, long term. And then also at the same time, have them be more connected to their listeners and their supporters. I was watching it happen real time. It still happens to this day, right? I am in a chat with a whole bunch of my collectors and people who support the music, even just people who love listening to it. And I've never had that direct relationship. It's always been, I put the music out, maybe I make a post on Instagram, and then I see, you know, a comment under that post. That was about as far as that relationship actually went, which felt wrong. You know, so I was like, you know, I've always been kind of on a mission to figure out more ways of connecting with people who are listening.
And I feel like this is why your story is so powerful, because you came from having a lot of commercial success to going independent and learning what that meant, and then learning about NFTs and then saying, hey, this isn't only about buying celebrity superstar 15-second audiovisual clip. You're like, hey, there's actually an opportunity for independent artists here. So setting the stage for that, what were your very first steps to actually be able to start using these Web3 platforms? And then how did that lead into what eventually became the LNRZ DAO?
Yeah, just like many artists who, you know, release NFTs and tokenize their content, I had 1,000 questions. I didn't know the direction to go, and I didn't know what to price at. I didn't know what quantity I should be at, and I think that was like the first time that I recognized that, you know, artists need some type of liaison, if you will, or else just like some guidance. And that was pretty wild. So I kind of just like on a whim, just did a drop with Jeremy, Clear Eyes from Marion Hill. And we released an audio visual piece of work from a video we shot in the desert like a year prior to. And then when sound came out, I didn't really have to deal with the price and quantity situation because it was fixed at that time. So 25 editions at 0.1 ETH. And yeah, and that was the first time that I had put out a piece of content that I felt so proud of, and like it had gotten such like great response from, you know, everyone on Twitter. It was wild. I'm not gonna lie, like it really felt like my birthday, which was weird. And yeah, I hadn't felt like that since really Inconsiderate had came out. And yeah, I was pretty much stuck and just like, 100% sold that this was going to be, a very important part of the future for
And I
music.
think what's so special about that is that you had a couple songs on catalog, right? You did this audiovisual with Jeremy on this video, and then you basically come out on sound, and your very first song on sound is actually the Loners Prelogue. So it's actually something that's not only your own individual music, but it's kind of setting the stage for Loners as a whole. So can you talk about why you chose to make that your first song on sound and what that meant to you at the time?
100%. So yeah, it roots back to I I do a lot of forward looking. I I always try and enjoy the present, but I'm always thinking about the future as well. And I had experienced so many personal I guess like roadblocks on my own journey of like releasing tokenized music. And I was like, wow, like I feel like there needs to be some collective. There needs to be a community where we can answer a whole bunch of questions and like guide you on your Web3 journey. Like that's what I was like hoping for. Oh no, I got that from you, and I got that from David. I got that by talking to 100 artists as well. Like I wanted to make a really good impact in the community. I didn't want like a lot of things turned me off on certain drops, like if an A-list celebrity was coming on doing a drop and then was just gone the next week. I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to actually provide a whole bunch of value, and that vehicle didn't exist, and that's where I was like, okay, I need to create this vehicle and help guide a whole bunch of artists along the way, and really create as a group, and build this monstrosity. And that was the original idea for Loners.
I love that. And for people who aren't aware of what Loners is, how would you describe it? And then more importantly, how did you go about setting it up? Because I think there's a lot of other artists that are in a position of they're saying, hey, I might have a group of friends around me that could be cool for us to start something. I think this is a big reason why SoundCloud was so successful back in the day.
Yep.
What gave you the initiative to want to start Loners, and what did that actually mean for you to start something like that?
Yeah, completely. So there was a lot of there was a whole bunch of things that I wanted to do with Loners, and so it took quite some time to like really get it to a good point. I knew that there were certain communities and certain things that really impacted me in my life throughout like my traditional music career. And when you're thinking of things like the double XL freshman list, that was one of the guiding ideas for what Loners could be. Double XL is like a curated experience, or what it I would say Double XL 10 years ago, right? This curated experience from hip hop producers or artists mainly, and they would gather the top talent, people who were going crazy like off of their social media content, their music, and things of that nature. And you would gather them up, and they would do like this cipher, this freestyle, and that was like, it was a major cosign to be on Double XL. That was one of the main ideas going behind that. I was like, wouldn't it be so cool if those artists created like music together, and if they put out a project, and if it was this more like in-depth curated experience, and just like took it a step further. I was like, why doesn't something like that really exist? And the deeper that I dove into it, I kind of realized, oh cool, like like maybe it could be like what Def Jam used to be back in the day, this underground kind of like experience where none of the majors like were they were focused on commercial rap at that time, and Def Jam was like, fuck that, like we're going to bring on the coolest talent, the craziest stuff, and like really get behind this. That's kind of the direction that we chose to go in.
And I feel like even zooming in on that more, from my perspective at the time, Loners was a Twitter account and a Sound account.
Yep.
Basically what ended up happening is that you started to release a song every week on Sound. you had a Twitter account that was posting about the music, and you had a collector chat to kind of put everyone together. And I think what's really important about that is that when I hear people thinking about ways to start projects in Web3, I feel like there's a lot of complexity around what people think they need to do for it. And what I really respect about the way that you started Loners, you said, hey, I'm figuring this out myself. And just to set the stage, you were also having a lot of success selling your own NFTs, but you didn't overthink it. It's not like you tried to set up some crazy corporate structure out of the gate or like, promise a 10-year roadmap. You're just like, hey, This is a really cool idea. I think we should put some freshmen together and let's see what happens. Completely.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in let's get it out right now. And that's pretty much what we did. I realized at the time that, just creating one project is really time consuming and you're not in front of everyone's faces constantly. And that's where we pivoted. And about like 6 months into, spinning up Loners and, working with our 5 extremely talented like freshman artists, I was like, dude, we need to be in front of people's faces like every single week. What's a good way to do that? I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just drop talent that we're like super, stoked on. And that's how the curated experience like really started and what really gave us like our first moment, I feel like. We started dropping every single week on Sound. Mm-hmm. We did fixed editions and we were just constantly dropping like new artists and growing the community. That definitely brought us, to the point that we're at today. I feel like at that moment, everything really changed. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for me too, even setting the stage a little bit, at this point in time, you had just had your frameworks drop, right? Which to me was basically one of the most pioneering drops in the space at the time.
Yep.
333 editions, these songs were extremely rare and extremely valuable. And, I think that precedent really allowed you to succeed so much with Loners because people saw when I buy a Reo Cragun drop, I'm buying a very valuable music NFT.
Yep.
And I think that reputation carried into the 50 editions you were doing with Loners. It made people feel confident that they knew they could place a bet on it because they had already seen you doing that as an individual artist. And now it's just being carried over to a wider community through Loners.
Yeah, completely. I mean, my main, my passion has been Loners since like I started dropping music NFTs. I realized, a few months into Loners that I needed to put the burners on my project and go hard with my personal music as well. Because, not everything was glamorous, right? With Loners is, something that I do want to highlight too. We had our Genesis drop and it was one of the slowest, pieces to be collected on Sound at a whole at that time. And so like nothing started off, at a fast pace. I think it wasn't until, we put out frameworks that it kind of clicked.
Yeah.
It was also a different time, a lot of things were kind of just like flying off the shelf at Sound. And when we did that Genesis drop, I feel like there was a shift. I made it a point at that time to go really hard with my artist project and show everyone that I was here to like really build something special, not only with my own personal artist project, but like impact the space like as a whole. And I think after the curated drops, that's when that became a reality to people.
Right. And this is at the time that you started to bring on more help with Loners too, right? You have Braden, you have Dave, Jeremy. Talk to me a little bit about what the kind of core team around Loners looked like and how that kind of started.
Yeah, completely. So at the beginning, it was Braden, Jeremy, and I, and Everlasting, who does the digital art. And, Braden's working a full-time job at this time. Jeremy has Marion Hill and Clear Eyes. And like we were trying our best to, get this thing off the ground, and everyone has limited time. But everyone cared so much about it, and none of us, earned a penny off of this stuff. It was all for the greater good of just like highlighting great music. Then, I think like 8 months into Loners, Dave joined the team. Super grateful for that. Dave is an amazing artist. DLG, for everyone listening. And also has like a great product background. Um, same same with Braden as well. Braden comes from the corporate world. He worked at Newfold Digital for 6.5 years, and yeah, I realized though, like, it's very important to build a team, and it's very important to build a team that's versatile, and that, all has like the same governing belief. And yeah, I mean, I definitely couldn't have built this without any of them for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, I think what's exciting there is it goes from being like a Reo project to being a team project, and you actually working alongside these creatives that have professional backgrounds, creative backgrounds. It started to really build a lot of awareness and attention around it. And it's at this point in time that you guys started to host that writing camp in Joshua Tree, right? You started to plan this, and then all these artists came out to the desert. Talk to me a little bit about that experience and what you guys were looking to accomplish there.
Yeah, completely. So from the beginning, we had set out to work on this cohesive body of work from the freshmen. I do want to highlight the 5 freshmen. We have Verwell, who is a European electronic duo. We have Ali, formerly known as Lack Honey, Tate Tucker. We have Madeline Duke. And then we also have, who am I missing?
Mark Johns,
Naomi, looking amazing. Yeah, so in January, we flew everyone out from, half of the freshmen come from around the world. So it was like really cool to get everyone together. This was the first time in real life everyone was really gathering for the first time. And yeah, we made like an amazing body of work, which we're super excited about.
Yeah, and I feel like the interesting thing here is that writing camps are actually pretty common when it comes to the music industry in general, but I've never been to a writing camp, but it's my understanding from going down there and seeing this when it was happening that it sounded like the energy around the writing camp felt a lot more fluid because there wasn't a objective to make anything of a certain style.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the one thing that, we're really proud about with Loners is, no matter what you do, as long, like we really want to showcase a whole bunch of, different genres and just like cool music, people with great attitudes, and who are hungry to grow their Web3 careers. Yeah, so the whole project is really versatile. We have like, some really chill, like folk, like campfire-esque music. We have a song where all of the drums were, made from scratch, like with, the kick being like a fist pounding like the desk. It's really like campfire feel. And then we have stuff that's like electronic forward, and then, some great bars from Ali and Tate. Mark John's got some bars in there too.
Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah. So yeah, it was an experience, man. It was it was really cool because all of the things that, I had kind of imagined up in my brain, I was watching it come to life real time. It's one thing, to have like, ideas that you're proud of, but I think it's another to execute. Those ideas don't really become a reality until you really put in all the hard work.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was a really powerful moment for me, man. I mean, just seeing everyone gathered there and making these songs around this collective vision that you built, it was truly beautiful. And I think the one thing that I want to highlight for people that are listening is nowadays you're starting to see Reo as the artist versus Reo as the CEO. So can you take a second to talk about the role you were playing around the camp specifically and what it kind of means for Reo to be like CEO of Loners?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah, I'm wearing multiple hats these days, which I'm really excited for. I've had a very long artist career, and, I want to play on the other side and, do better than, things that have come before. I really am artist forward because I know what it's like on the other side, and I know what it's like to be in like a shit situation. also, I mean, we didn't touch on this, but, in that deal, my original deal, I had 16 points on the royalty. And, that's one of the reasons that I was so excited about Web3 and just this sector of music. It has so much potential to really flip things on its head. And yeah, I mean, I want to see artists like succeed, and I want to have a helping hand in a lot of artists' careers. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, Web3 Switzerland is definitely the term that I've coined for you. So I think you're doing a great job with it.
Yeah.
And I guess just to turn it into a very full circle moment. So you guys go out to the desert in Joshua Tree, you record these songs, and then what do you do with those songs that you recorded?
Yeah. We got to work. So Jeremy, pretty much immediately, got on finalizing all the music, mixing it, doing last minute production. And then, a couple weeks ago, we got on a virtual mixing session too. And I played a small role in, finalizing some of the mixes with him. And, yeah, we got to work on the art as well. We were like, cool, this is going to be a great moment. We need to tokenize it. Like, let's make some really cool art. So Tapped Everlasting, and he got to work on the visual experience of, the Loner's tape.
And what's the Loner's tape called?
This Loner's tape is called Satellites.
Nice. And what should people know about it?
People should know that it's been a long time in the making. It was fueled by the community. It was fueled by 6 amazing artists. Very well as 2 people, so 6. But yeah, and it exists because we have so many like really cool people inside of the Loners community, right? I think that's one thing that we haven't spoke on to an extent yet. As we started doing the curated drops, the amount of people who supported Loners like started exponentially growing. Like from the moment that we did the Genesis drop, there were like 23 collectors in our community. Now I believe we have over 600. We have about 200 people who are the most active collectors in this Loners HQ chat. Yeah, and this freshman project doesn't exist without them. Like they've played in a major role in getting this off of the ground, and have really championed this, as much as I have, which has been just, so amazing to see. So yeah, I mean, this doesn't exist without, a role being played by all parties.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of pull apart here what it means to put a project out in Web3 compared to traditionally what would happen after a writing camp in Web2. And I think what I mean by this is Satellites is this body of work. You mentioned getting to work on the art and the music. I think that it's all pretty standard right now.
Yep.
But then comes in this conversation about how do we actually release this within Web3? And so can you help people understand kind of what it looks like to plan the release of a project like this and everything that comes with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's extensive, right? One of the things that was really important to us is this is not just our project, it's everyone's project. We're like 600 strong, so the question was, our community helped choose the 5 freshman artists. We wanted to have them super involved in the Web3 side of things as far as the drop goes as well. And one of the things that was heavy on our mind is how do we include everyone and also make it their project as well, and not something that we're just like pioneering behind the scenes. How do we involve everyone? And so we're rolling out on Tuesday. I don't know when this comes out, but on Tuesday
it'll be out.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're rolling out a curation system to help to have an input from the community, depending on how many editions we're doing and at what price point.
It's amazing. And then there's another little layer on there too.
Correct.
On the curation side. What happens after you vote on the supply and price?
After we vote on the supply and the price, we're also voting. We have like 15-second snippets of every single song, which the community is also going to choose which songs become the most rare. Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. Look, there's a couple of things here that really started to stand out to me with the Satellites project. Before any of this voting happened, you guys had a community call. You filled everyone in on what happened at the writing camp, what's coming next. And to me, just even seeing people coming together for 30 minutes to talk about the future of loners is like, reminds me of early FWB when we had like 5 people in the Discord, you know? And I think that this is something that felt very real to me. And typically speaking, when it comes to bigger hallmark collections, let's call it frameworks or criteria, which I want to touch on in a second. The artist is saying, hey, we're doing this many editions at this price, and here's how many editions there are of each song. And you just got to like kind of roll with it. You know, I think there's something really beautiful about that. But I think where loners are starting to shine now is it's starting to say, how can we actually have a curated opinion about what this project looks like, but still involve the community in a way that feels very holistic. So in this case, you guys have these songs, 15 seconds a piece, but then you're putting them out there and you're saying, hey, of these songs that we chose, which one do you think is the rarest? And I think that community input really helps to give people, you know, ownership over this project because they know they actually had a role in determining the output of what this becomes rather than just collecting it after it's already been determined.
Yeah, completely. I think, you know, like the whole goal is, you know, this project is everyone's. And like, how do you convey that? You know, it didn't feel right to just like have 100% of like the deciding factor in what this all becomes. I wanted to make it a communal experience, and you know, the rest of the team did as well. And that's, you know, that's why we chose to go this route. I'm excited. I'm really excited. I haven't felt this way since, you know, frameworks pretty much. I think, you know, there's always like a little bit of, you know, emotion that comes along with like these time periods as well. You know, it's been over a year in the making, and, you know, I feel like we've built something special with an extraordinary group of people. And I've been playing a direct role, but I've also been outside looking in, you know, like I didn't have a role in like the music creation. So it was really cool. I'm proud, you know, and yeah, that's a new experience for me. And, I'm going to, you know, continue working my ass off to make sure that, it gets, the shine and, the visibility that it needs.
100%. And I mean, I feel like I just have so much respect for the way that you've carried yourself in the space so far. You know, you've come in and you've made such an impact on a personal level with your artist project. You've been a part of literally the biggest drops in music NFTs, in my opinion. But now you're going bigger than that. And I think one thing that's exciting about this next chapter of Loners is that you're not only looking at it from the artist perspective, but something I really want to zoom in on here is that you're also a collector yourself. You also think about curators that are bringing attention to this project. And when it comes to making this a success, it's actually not as much about only the artist winning here, but you actually are looking at this from like, in order from the artist to win, the collectors also need to win too.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, like, yeah, and I mean, I had like a conversation with myself a long time ago. And, you know, from the moment I first started earning, you know, like ETH, let's call it, from some of my creations, I immediately, you know, just started my collecting journey as well. Am I really a part of this community? Like, if I'm not, you know, buying other stuff that, you know, I'm really excited about, like, I want to hold these pieces because like I really appreciate all the hard work that goes into the creation. And not only just the creation, but, you know, a lot of, you know, Web3 musicians who are like prevalent in the space, like they're spending a lot of time, you know, like interacting with the community. They're spending a lot of bandwidth, you know, provoking ideas and like cool, I mean, like just movements in general. And yeah, I mean, that's why I went super heavy in collecting. I have like probably like 600 music NFTs, which is pretty funny.
And count them.
Yeah. And then not only that too, like, you know, I did a drop called Light Show, and Light Show was probably one of my biggest songs on chain. And like, I I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't want the ETH. I wanted, people to hear the music. Like it was something I had created in my bedroom, and was really proud of because I self-produced it, and I don't put a lot of my music out that I 100% produce. Like a lot of other artists, like I judge my production. And I was like, oh, it was so wild because Light Show had gotten such like a really good response. I was so gassed up. I was like, yo, like how can I continue to like better the community based off of like the weight that this drop had. And yeah, that was I was like, let me do a grant system. Like, yeah, and
I love that.
that's how I met the freshman talent.
Well, I mean, speaking of self-produced songs that you put out, you recently had a drop on Sound called Spent, which was the very first song ever on SoundSwap. Can you talk a little bit about what that meant to you, and then maybe more broadly what people should know about SoundSwap as kind of a feature?
Yeah, of course. No, Spent was like a really fun one. Another self-produced song. And yeah, I mean, it was the first record on SoundSwap. And it's really cool concept. For 24 hours, it was an open edition. We did about 1,500 editions in those first 24 hours, which, was mind blowing. It was, the highest edition count song that I've ever done or been a part of. And yeah, from there, after the 24-hour window closes, SoundSwap opens. And really, it's like a bonding curve. I don't want to get too technical with it. For a very broken down, I guess, description of it is, for every purchase that happens when the bonding curve is activated, the price will go up, and you can sell directly into the bonding curve and burn the NFT. And when that happens, the price goes down.
I love that. And I think the important thing here is, one thing that's really interesting about you as an artist is you're very active in the conversation around pricing and collecting music.
Yes.
And the reason I want to highlight this is because this is the playing field that is completely net new to music as a whole.
Yep.
Around selling editions, pricing editions, collectors making money, artists making money. And the one thing that I just want to vocalize here is when you did this SoundSwap drop, we're talking about bonding curves. No one knows what the fuck bonding curves is.
Yep.
But I think you have a really good way of being able to zoom in. And this is something that we were talking about offline. You're just like, yo, I think that collectors need to make money, And I think that there's a world in which, I did 1,500 editions of Spent myself, but like maybe some of that could have gone into the liquidity pool to actually fund more purchases. And so you start looking at your drops less from like, how much ETH did I gross? Because I think that's like the first order of understanding the space, to now being like, how can I still make ETH, but also make sure that everyone else wins too? And I'd love for you just to talk about that mentality that you have around your music.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there needs to be, a more symbiotic relationship with artists and collectors, or with creators and collectors. I think, I off of Spent, I think I put, an ETH or something like that into the bonding curve, drove the price up. Yeah, I'm looking to give back in as many ways as I can. I think, none of this, it doesn't matter about, what I like. That's like the smallest thought in the back of my mind is like how much I gross off of something. It's like, did this have a real impact? Was this a positive, a net positive for the space? Because I know I'm not foolish to the fact that, this only works if it, benefits more people than just the artists, right? I think, that's something that's always heavy on my mind. Yeah.
And I think the thing to pull out there is that you're the top collector of Spent, and I think one thing that really clicked with me with SoundSwap is these songs are going to be open forever, and when you're an artist that's buying into your own collections, you're really buying your own assets, you know, and I think it's something that's extremely powerful. If you think about music and its precedent beforehand, you have royalties, you have masters, you have publishing, but there's never been a way for you to buy more masters, other than what's given off the bat. But what's cool about these editions on something like Spent is like, not only are you getting the primary and secondary sales from the royalties, but you're actually buying the assets too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, which is new, and I don't know, it's exciting to me. Yeah. Also, for everyone who's listening, and if you don't have a music NFT, would be happy to gift you your first one.
Little alpha there.
Yeah.
DM Reo, listen to
DM
this
me.
podcast, and he's got you. And if you do have music NFT, you get nothing.
Right.
About to blow it up.
Yeah,
Look,
drop the address.
let's take it full circle here. So there's one other topic I want to touch on really quick because it's happening in real time. You've had a lot of commercial success through Reo Cragun on Spotify. You're now having a lot of success with Reo and Loners on Sound. But it's not like the Spotify world has just gone away for you. You know, you mentioned to me at the top of this conversation, I've been hitting the gym. You've been doing a content series around it. There's a project you have right now that's rolling out called Criteria.
Yep.
How do you think about balancing your CEO, Web3, Loners, we're going to make the best fucking artist collective possible with, I need to get some streams on this album?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, I have no shame about this. I am very heavy on the loner side currently. So I would say it's probably like a 70-30 split. Yeah, like I said, I think that, you know, more artists, this is where my focus is and like where my core belief is. It's like, I want to be a part or play some, you know, small role in helping a lot of artists, right? And I've done a lot of things in my artist career. The one thing that I have not, you know, been a part of is like seeing out a lot of other people's visions. And yeah, that's where a lot of my focus is right now. And it's also more scalable, you know, like, and what I mean by scalability is like, if I can, you know, help 5 artists and, you know, make a positive impact, or 10 artists, you know, like, that's kind of cooler than just like, you know, focusing on just my one solo artist project.
Right.
Yeah. I make a lot of music, and I'm excited about a lot of others' music though as well at the same time. And yeah, that's pretty much the split. I am very heavily focused on the Criteria rollout right now as well, in tandem with the Loners rollout. So that's been, yeah, like I said, I have no work-life balance right now.
Right.
So it's just like...
Well, I think what's really interesting about it is that we dropped Criteria on Sound in December, right? But it's coming out now on DSPs. And I'm noticing that in the same way that you were very ahead of the curve on music with electronic, with your project with Flume, and either before that with the way that you're releasing your music early on, it feels like what you're doing sonically with Criteria is really like, I mean, I'm super biased here, but at the cutting edge in terms of what I find to be the next chapter of music generally, which is this fusion between electronic, dance, hip hop, rap. And I feel like you're just kind of right at the center of that. So I guess maybe thinking about it from like a music standpoint, how do you think about kind of where music is going with relation to what you're building on sort of the Web3 side as a whole? Yeah,
I mean, I'm super excited about it. I'm really proud of the Criteria project. We spent a lot of time and effort on it. Dan and I were, you know, cooking up for, you know, upwards of a year, and just like building catalog, you know, becoming great friends. Like, we only met, you know, what, a year and a half ago or something at this point now. Yeah, we've been just making a whole bunch of music. Already been around the world with bruh. Like, so rich. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, it's been really cool. So it's been a lot of fun to roll out this project on the traditional side. He's been my gym buddy too, keeping me accountable. I'm down like 20 pounds.
Let's go.
Yeah. Skinny Craig on the way.
I love that. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because right now Loners is really, really active on the Web3 side. I know that there's also a lot of plans about Loners to actually be distributing this music on Spotify as well. Can you give us a little bit of a teaser of what might be coming in that world?
Yeah. Music is coming out traditionally as well. Yeah. Like I said, like, I hear a lot of things from the artist perspective. And, you know, one of those things is, you know, artists want to be versatile across the board. They want the music to do well on the Web3 side of things and traditionally, and as they should, right? I mean, like, I think that's the goal, is you want a career that's strong in all facets of your craft. And yeah, so we want to go heavy on both sides of the spectrum and just, you know, get these songs the discoverability and the visibility that they deserve. So yeah, that's the plan.
I want to zoom out here to kind of close this up. We've done a lot in the last year and a half.
Yep.
It kind of feels crazy to look at in hindsight. What do you think this looks like in like 2 or 3 years time? Like in the most utopian world ever, like believe it, manifest it. What do you think all this turns into in a couple of years from now?
Yeah, I think, a lot more creators in the space, a lot more people who love their collections, who are proud to collect. And I think that it becomes a part of everyone's digital identity. I think that people will start also thinking about music a little bit differently. The conversation has already, been spun up. People are more privy to the information that most musicians don't really earn much off of streaming. And I think that there's going to be a highly increased level of interconnectivity between listeners and creators.
That's
for
right.
Sure.
And I think the one thing that I'm really excited about Loners is I'm a firm believer that all music will eventually be on chain. It feels inevitable to me. And I think Loners is in a really unique spot to put a lot of music on chain in the next couple of years. And I think that's something that's extremely exciting to me.
Yeah. I mean, specifically with Loners as well, where I think this heads is, like I said, when I first began, I believed that it would be like a double XL as far as curation standpoint goes. These days, I feel like it becomes the next iteration of what the New Music Fridays are, and what, the Rap Caviars, the Pollens on Spotify. I think that it becomes a home base for multiple consumers of music, and it becomes somewhat of a launch pad for a lot of artists as well. I think, as more people come into this space, there's going to be a need for discoverability, an increased level of discoverability. It's just not feasible for, a listener to go scavenge through Twitter and crate dig for, the next artist. And yeah, I think that Loners will be a home base and a funnel for great music.
What already has been. And I think the thing that's very obvious to me at this point is that you guys have an incredible team. You've got incredible artists in your pocket. We got Satellites coming out next week by the time this drops. And closing thoughts, is there anything else that you want to say about the project in general, maybe about Loners, and give a quick sign off here?
Yeah, I want to say, we're really excited about this. It's been a long time in the making, and if you can't collect, still pay attention, still listen to the music. The music is always free, and we believe that it should always be free. But yeah, I mean, join our community as well. It's really easy to get involved with Loners. If you cannot collect, pop in to see exactly what's going on. Would love to, talk more too if anyone has questions. I'm always just a DM away.
Yeah. And given we've made it this deep into the podcast, are you guys looking to bring on more people to Loners, or what are you currently looking for as far as expanding the Loners core team and sort of the people building this project?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. We need more hands on deck. There's a lot of artists that need to be, serviced. And we have a very small team currently. But yeah, we're expanding.
And if someone wants to get involved, to have a conversation about that, what should they do to get in touch?
Yeah, get in touch with Clear Eyes at Clear Eyes on Twitter. Myself at Reo Cragun on Twitter. You can DM Loners as well at LNRZ.
Love that. Well, I feel like we could talk about quite a lot, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it here. Satellites coming out next week. Rio, I just want to say in closing, man, you are such an inspiration to me, man. I mean, seriously, like the commitment you've made to this space and sort of the impact that you've had in the time that you've joined it. I say like we're really building like a home team here, and it really feels like what we're doing right now is going to be a huge, huge part of history. I just want you to know that I have talked about Loners to so many artists and so many founders and basically anyone that's ever had a remote look at a collective before. I'm just like, here's Loners. This is a playbook. Yeah. And I think for you, just someone who's come in and learned so much so fast and really been able to define the next generation of what collectives looks like. It makes me really proud to be your friend, and I'm just really excited to see what happens from here.
Thank you, man. Vice versa. And, just to, bump off that, none of this even exists like without like, our friendship, without like those early conversations that we had as well. You helped me really figure out how to navigate at the beginning, and then also throughout, like you've been a really solid sounding board, for some of my crazy ideas, things that I want to bring to life. And no, I really appreciate you, man. Like,
I appreciate you.
time.
Well, let's just say that there's a couple more crazy ideas in the back burner right now too, huh?
For sure.
I love it. Well, guys, this has been Invest in Music. Reo, appreciate your time, man. Let's go sell some satellites.
Let's go.
All right. Cheers, guys.